Talk 1050 WTKA online at WTK.com, not just live over the airwaves, but also live on the stream, YouTube, the Michigan Insider YouTube page, Facebook Live, Twitter, WTK Twitter account. You can check in with us on the video stream there. It's MGoBlog Roundtable time. Joining us, the crew, as they do every single week, starting off, of course, with Brian Cook from MGoBlog. Brian, how are you?
I'm good.
We have Craig Ross. We almost didn't have Craig Ross for a second.
No.
Craig Ross.
It's only a small glitch. I noticed that someone across the screen said they were listening from France. Can that be true? I mean,
absolutely.
Wow.
You are allowed to listen from France. Yes.
Wow.
It's the internet.
Bonjour.
It goes places.
Yeah, we've had Japan, we've had China, we've had, from all over. We haven't heard from Ron in China in a long time, by the way. But we also have Seth FIsher. Seth, good morning. How are you?
Bonjour.
So, guys, we spent a lot of time, projecting, predicting, speculating. What is this team going to look like? Talking about the Michigan men's basketball team coming off the pause. They, by all accounts, had a little bit of rust in that first half and then very quickly reverted to form in the second half of that game on the road at the Kohl Center against the top 25 Wisconsin team and just overwhelmed them in the second half. Some are calling it the most impressive victory of the year. What say you, Brian Cook?
Well, the context is important. So you're on the road. The whistle you're getting is a little weird. And then you're down 12 at halftime. And then Juwan Howard goes to the locker room and is like, yep, that's as long as we weren't down 30, we're going to win this game. And that's exactly what happened. So the second half was probably one of the more impressive halves I've seen from this team. 40-20, you double them up, you hold them to 20 points. And that was like a well-deserved 20 points, right? Like they couldn't find shots. Mm-hmm. And honestly, they kind of played a little bit over their heads in the first half. Wisconsin did with their shooting. They were 6 of 10 from 3 at some point, like they're hitting mid-range stuff. And I think the thing that really stands out is that, so we had this COVID layoff and people say like defense travels. Well, I think defense withstands COVID layoffs. So Michigan's shooting was off. I think they had their lowest assist numbers of the season. Like the offense just kind of felt clunky, didn't click, but that defense is still there, and that's going to carry them a long way.
Yeah, I'm in a minority view on this one, and in that I didn't see the rust. Michigan comes out in the first 5 minutes, turns Wisconsin over 3 times. Michigan has 2 offensive rebounds. We have 5 more shots in the first couple minutes of the game. We're just not making shots, and I don't think that's rust so much. And meanwhile, Wisconsin makes 6 of their first 7 or 8 threes. Only one of them was a bad defensive rotation. I felt that Michigan actually played good. And at half, even though we were down 12, I told people I was watching it with, I thought we had reasonable chances because Wisconsin wasn't going to keep shooting it that way, and we were going to start making some shots. So I didn't feel like this was revisionism by Juwan, because I kind of felt the same way at halftime, that Michigan had actually played a decent half, and they were just got bit by randomness a bit, and it regressed as often happens. So yeah, I didn't know we were going to win at halftime, but I thought that we would make a run and would have an opportunity. So
I felt the rust with Eli.
Eli put up a couple of bad floaters, I thought, although he can make that shot, but that shot's one of my least favorites. And he did look a little rusty. But as Brian pointed out, he still played good defense, as he always does.
Yeah, so the thing with Eli is that he took a couple of like Tim Hardaway jumpers, where it's like an 18-footer with 25 seconds on the shot clock. And
I remember the one you're talking about.
There were 2 of those actually, and they just kind of felt like the crispness wasn't there, and the shot quality that Michigan usually thrives on wasn't there. So I think they only got to the rim 9 times in this game, and they got to the rim 23 times in the first Wisconsin game. And I think part of that's Wisconsin adapting to what Michigan's doing. 23 is a big number. You're probably not going to match that. But just the ability to hit guys on the roll seemed like it was a lot harder in this game. And some of that, I think, is attributable to the fact that you haven't really played together in almost a month.
Seth,
What's going on with Wisconsin and their center spots? I mean, Wisconsin coming into the year looked like they would be in the upper third of the conference at worst at the center position.
It's
and right now they look
it's
like
Reavers.
Yeah, Reavers is not.
He's just he was supposed to be much better defensively. I just don't know if his confidence is down or whatever. But I think also playing Michigan twice makes you look bad. So, I mean, they've looked fine in a lot of other conference games this year. But in general, like, they were supposed to be a 5-out offense. And the idea, we were so afraid of them, is because if you can put Potter and Reavers on the court at the same time, that's two centers who can shoot from three. So they can be 5 wide and they can just, have all that length in there. Well, if you can't play those two guys together, and they can't, well, that takes away, like, the main thing that they're really good at. So they end up playing, what's his name? Tyler Wall all the time, and that's, Wall's not a terrible player, but it's a significant downgrade from that 5-out offense that we were so terrified of.
Well, they, in the first half, I mean, they were getting good looks, and Lean Ford is hitting. I mean, he's like shooting lights out. So you felt like they were comfortable offensively. That's what I came away with. In the first game, throughout that game, they did a good job of running them off the 3-point line or moving them off their spots. Got to the point, if you recall, even when they got open looks, they were errant. They just were like so shocked. In this game, a lot of comfort. And I thought Juwan Howard halftime said, hey, we're gonna apply some pressure. We're gonna go 3-quarter court. We're gonna speed them up. And by speed them up, I mean, let them get into their shot clock or into their offense a little bit later and make them rush at the end of their shot clock situation. This is not a team that is comfortable doing that at all. Ira and I talked about it. I mean, they got one guy other than Demetric Trice, who I thought, Hunter Dickinson did a great job when he was, caught in switches on him. But the only other guy is the freshman. What's that kid's name off the bench?
Davis.
Yeah, Jonathan Davis. Like, he's their one-on-one, ISO athlete player. They don't have anyone else that can do that, which is why he was their offense in the second half of this game. Just completely threw him off kilter. I thought it was a great adjustment by Juwan.
Well, and their Davis was doing it to our Davis, but I think you're right about the adjustment, and I think the way that Michigan got away with that is Demetric Trice. He can move, but he can't move as well as, like, some guards, right? He's not a guy who's going to blow everybody off the ball. And Michigan said, look, we can get away with Hunter Dickinson on this guy if we need to. And, I think he blew by him one time. But
with a hook.
It was a hook. Right. So, I mean, if that's what you got to, use, like, okay, if you can play Hunter Dickinson as a switchable center, that's it. There's no way to beat that.
Yeah, and Trice doesn't get to the rim very much. He's like, it's 50% of his shots get there. So, like, he's going to be in the mid-range. He's going to be a jump shooter. And so after those Aleem Ford threes, he hits 3 right out of the gate. Wisconsin has 3 more triples the rest of the game. So that switching was able to really shut off any kind of pick and pop opportunities. And then, he hits some slop in the second half. He hits a couple hooks. And then his only other bucket in this game is the late clock kind of, he comes off a screen and pulls up. And that's one of the things that really stands out is, like, so Hunter Dickinson is blocking some of these shots out of bounds. And then Wisconsin has 2 seconds on the shot clock because their offense is one of the slowest in college basketball. So they have all this late clock stuff, and, like, sometimes you block a shot and it's really just kind of like deflecting a ball out of bounds and it doesn't really matter. But when there's 2 seconds on the shot clock, I mean, that's a full on turnover right there because Brad Davidson is going to put it off the side of the backboard.
What I thought was so impressive, and I think you saw a lot more in the second half, was Michigan's offense kind of coming back to its form so quickly. I had a conversation with Ken Pomeroy once because I make these charts all the time, right? And they compare your level right now, your Pomeroy score right now, to, like, the average of every tournament team going back to, like, 2006. And the problem was early in the season, nobody was getting past like the 50th percentile. No, like everyone's offense looked terrible on this chart. So I just bugged him one time on Twitter, like, why is this? And he goes, no, that's true. Offenses take like half the season to get going. Like you're never going to see an offense nearly as good in the first half of the season as they are in the second half of the season. It's just because the players get used to playing with each other and they get used to their sets and they get more comfortable in the system. Well, Michigan goes off for 3 weeks. So that's like a reset, right? And that's what I was terrified of, that like you're going to have nothing. And then you're going to go right back to the beginning of the season. And this is like across basketball, this is supposed to be like a 50% change in your offense. And they come out second half and they look fine. They're running their sets. They know what they're doing. Like they're getting to it wasn't perfect, but like after being off 3 weeks, that was incredible.
To Craig's point, though, and I think this is part of what you were alluding to, Craig, you got a game where Hunter Dickinson, it wasn't his highest scoring output by any stretch, but rebounding and defense, could this have been his best effort, especially when he out-rebounds the opposing centers 15-0? I've never seen. I asked Tim McCormick, have you ever played in a game at least 18 minutes and didn't get a single rebound? He said, it's never happened. Never happened in my I was like, so 2 guys playing 18 plus minutes and they don't get a single rebound. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, me neither. And it really wasn't. I know it was a close game, and I know Michigan was down 12 at half. But I even in the first half, I felt like Michigan was the better team. I wasn't really anxious about this game at halftime. My wife even commented, "Why aren't you screaming at the TV?" And I said, "Because I think we're the better team and we're outplaying them." And I'm not, upset. And it was just shots going in. 2 things about Wisconsin that bother me. One is, are we going to have to watch Davison again next year?
Maybe.
And yeah, probably is my guess. And
Unless
2
he goes
is
to jail.
yeah, and 2 is Trice's mom. Well, we have to listen to her next year too. I mean, he'll be 26 years old next year, and he'll probably still be playing at Wisconsin. I mean, is that?
Trice might have some overseas options.
Maybe he's got overseas.
Davison coming back though. How about this question? And I wonder about this, guys. That has been a topic in Madison. Is he, when it comes to how the coaches deal with him and how he shoots back at them, is he a problem for them? A guy who we looked at as a revelation for them last year, he become an issue for him this year.
Well, I mean, in some sense, yes, because he's shooting 28% from 3 in Big Ten.
Wait, and let me read it. Excuse me, I'm acting like.
Are you talking about Potter?
Yeah,
Potter,
I'm talking about Micah Potter. Micah, message from Dan Williams on YouTube for those who are listening said Micah Potter is a cancer on the Wisconsin team, and so I brought that message up, and that is something that I know Dan Dockett just pointed out in Wisconsin broadcast this year.
Okay, but Dan Dockett also does color commentary like he's coaching 12-year-olds. So it's
but you can actually see examples of what he's talking about with Potter, though.
I mean, you can see him kind of snapping back at his coach every once in a while, but Isaiah Livers got into it with Juwan Howard earlier in the year, right? Like there's a certain level of that's okay. And I don't see like Potter's drop off from 3 is just killing him because Reavers is doing the same thing. But they're still a really good defensive team overall. It's just like Potter can't shoot like he was shooting last year. And that's the main difference between, because not only does that you're having a bunch of inefficient 3-point shots, but last year in this Wisconsin game, they got to the bucket over and over again because Michigan couldn't put a center anywhere near the basket. And that's no longer the case. So you could attribute it to his attitude, but I think it's just the fact that they can't shoot right now.
I think that's right. They're not shooting from 2 either, and they're sort of an average plus 3-point team at best, but they're terrible from the 2-point range, and so look at Wisconsin. I think the bigger thing there is, they're still a good defensive team. But they're just not shooting the ball that well and haven't for a good chunk of the season. I think it's really perhaps as simple as that for them.
I think if Potter is mad at Greg Gard, I think he's right. I mean, if you're playing Reavers instead of that guy, he didn't start him in this game. He didn't start him in the game before that. I don't know what's going on in the locker room. That's not something we have access to. But I think Potter is by far the better player. I think he's by far their best center, and I think that if you could let him shoot through his issues, he might actually be able to help you a lot more. I don't really like the way that they're using him right now.
Yeah, I don't know if that's his gripe or not, but comparing him with Isaiah Livers, who you're right, it was very, it was the blow up, if you want to call it that, was covered extensively, but it's also an anomaly, and it doesn't seem like the way they talk about it with Micah Potter that him barking back at the coaches is much of an anomaly. And maybe, hey, look, maybe it's just a difference in dynamic on this roster where they have that back and forth here, and it doesn't work as well among a number of things that aren't working as well with Wisconsin this year.
I mean, and the truth is, he's getting. I just checked. Potter's getting 43% of the minutes. He's only playing 43% of the time, and his shooting numbers are way, way ahead of Reavers. Reavers is shooting 29% from 3, 47% from 2, which isn't great. And Potter's numbers are much better than that. And so you can understand. Pardon me?
So it has to be a reason why why are they favoring Reavers over him?
Well, so the two things that I've seen Wisconsin fans say is that Potter's pick and roll defense has been really, really bad this year. Mm-hmm. And there's a site called Hoop Lens we use a lot, which gives you on-off splits.
Yeah.
And Potter had a huge edge before the first game. And when I checked back before the second game, they're basically dead even. So Wisconsin's performing the same whether which guy's on the floor, it doesn't matter. So I can kind of get it if that's the case. Like if there's a clear winner, then you play the guy who doesn't talk back in the effort to build a culture. Mm-hmm. And if there's not, and you're just scuffling, you just got to keep trying them and see which one might actually lock in on a particular day.
All right. Now I know I'm asking this question to a biased audience here in MGoBlog Roundtable on the Michigan Insider, but was the elbow, was it an inadvertent basketball play elbow, or was it he actually peeks, looks over, sees Mike Smith coming, and gets his elbow out there as he's going up to the rim? Which way did you guys see it?
There's a case you could make that that's a basketball play. Because it's Brad Davison, it's not a basketball play.
Okay, I was about to say.
That guy is a psychopath.
Taking over his feed.
Who do you give the benefit of the doubt to, right? Like
if Eli Brooks did that, I'd be like, all right, that's incidental. But when Brad Davison does it, jail. He's going to jail.
Here's the thing. When you're making that play, if your elbow is at its sort of normal level, in other words, if your elbow is in your midsection and you're sort of elbowing a guy away, all right, that's a normal basketball play. But if you look at it, Davidson's elbow is up to his eye. So he's put his elbow in a naturally high spot. And so to me, that's why I felt the refs blew it, that he really did make an unusual play to go after,
yes, he did.
After Mike Smith's head.
And they messed up his shot too.
Yeah,
I know. So I mean, because ordinarily what you would do if you're driving to your right that way, you'd use the elbow in your opponent's midsection to try and create some room, and you might get away with that, and that's an ordinary basketball play. This was not. He brought his elbow way up and went after Smith's head. That was intentional. That should have been an intentional foul, and we know it's intentional because of two words: Brad Davison.
Right. That's like how in that situation does that referee not take into account who it is? Well, in the assessment of whether it was a flagrant.
Yeah, also Mike Smith is checking him all game. And what is Mike Smith not? A shot blocker. So he's jumping into Mike Smith like this guy is gonna come whack his shot. That's not happening, right? I mean, the good thing for Michigan, I guess, is that it saved him a point because he had a layup, but he just needed to get his elbows in, and he missed it. And Brad Davison is currently there's a a site called barttorvik.com, and you can chart out like every Big Ten player for 20 years. And he's currently shooting like 22% from two, which is the worst in the last 20 years for any Big Ten player with like 40 attempts.
Wow.
He's having a historically terrible season from inside the arc, and that was part of it. So, and then he didn't make another shot the rest of the game. So karma is going to get you.
So maybe they won't want him back. Good grief. I didn't know it was that bad.
The Wisconsin fans that I've seen don't want him back. They're done.
He'll be back. He'll be back next year. It's a lock. He'll be back. and so, speaking of things like that, is Sam right that Izzo should get Coach of the Year this year? I mean, I heard Sam say that he should get Coach of the Year. And, after the game they lost by 30, I think that was their second 30-point loss this year.
I got a million excuses.
He complained that Iowa made shots. I mean, and when has Iowa ever made a shot? I mean, he complained that Iowa, made some threes. I mean, they don't have any guys in that team that can make threes. I mean, he just went off ballistic, about it. Plus, they doubled down routinely on Garza in that game, leaving their shooters wide open. And then he was like mystified that they made any of them. I mean, it was really quite astounding.
Well,
also was astounding in the fact they scored 0.85 points per possession against the worst defense in the history of Big Ten basketball.
Listen, you got to understand. See, now, remember when I brought him up as Coach of the Year? Yeah. It was after they came within single digits of Iowa. Okay. And I said, this is an exceptional coaching job. So, I mean, this obviously didn't go his way this time around, getting beat by 30, but I think it makes that single-digit loss look even better, wouldn't you say? I mean, I think that's part of the resume. So
that's what sucks about basketball.
They can finish the season losing those games by an average of less than 10. I think he's right back in the coaching year. I have to be right back.
I got to coach and practice the way I got to practice.
Exactly.
Let me tell you something I learned in my athletic career. My athletic career mostly took place before I was in middle school. And the good coaches were the ones who were able to get everybody on the field and make everybody feel like they're part of the team. And the bad coaches were the ones who picked out his 5 best players and just played them all the time. And everybody else is just like, why are my parents even paying for this? So I credit Izzo because I'm sure he's making a lot of guys feel like they are Spartans and they're going to remember this the rest of their lives.
I don't really give a damn.
I mean, it was someone, I don't know if one of you guys said this, that, basketball is a lot of synergy, and playing with the guys that you're used to playing with is serious and meaningful in basketball. And so it's why I've always argued for 7 and 8 man rotations.
No, you argue for 6-man rotations.
6 is okay. 6 is okay.
7 and 8 is fine. But you're like 6, and that's a hard limit. If you put a 7th guy on the court, you're a terrible coach.
Well, if you put 12 guys on the court, I know you're a terrible coach.
I can get behind that.
Yeah, and I mean, he's got to at some point make up his mind what his team is, and you can't just keep running 10 guys out there, 12 guys out there for 8, 9, 10 minutes. You're never going to have anything on your team doing that. So, I mean, to me, it's one of the worst coaching jobs I've ever seen. And it's even worse than what Hoiberg did this week against Illinois. I don't know if you saw any of that.
Oh, yeah.
What are you going to do?
I mean, he's up by 6 with 2.5 minutes to go, and then decided, our team just doesn't need to shoot the ball anymore. And of course, they go into overtime and lose. And
I don't think that was the plan for Hoiberg.
It sure looked like it.
After that final play in regulation, he stormed onto the court and spiked his mask. So I'm thinking that's not what he drew up.
Yeah, but he shouldn't have drawn anything up. He should have just yelled at his team, just shoot the ball. This is the last possession, shoot it. And instead they didn't get a shot at all.
Well, I mean, I was taking notes. I think it was you, Craig, who said, does anyone know that Ayo Dosunmu only goes to his right?
Oh, my goodness. Tony, I mean, but, and Nebraska for 25 minutes in that game did actually, I'll give Hoiberg credit, a really nice job of forcing him left. and he had like 5 or 6 points. And then the last 10 minutes of the game, they said, "Nah, you could go right." And he scores 30 points in the last 5 or 6 minutes in overtime. And last night or the night before, they played Northwestern, and I'll give Collins credit. Collins said, "Nope, you're not going right on us ever." And they completely shut Dosunmu down. I mean, he made
like the last 5 minutes where he like just single-handedly won the game. This is like one of the running subplots in the conference is that Illinois kind of sucks and Iowa closes it out.
Well, in the Illinois game, I think if you look at it, he did just in the Northwestern game, he did not do much. He made a couple threes and he made a couple runouts, but they were not going to let him. And that's a pretty limited team.
I mean, Craig, he went, a foot right and about like 3 yards back, and then he took that shot, and that was the shot, and that was what killed them in the end. So, Ayo in the last couple minutes of a game is absolutely legit.
He's a great player. He's the best player in the conference, and certainly should be the player of the year in the Big Ten. Garza, forget it. And
whoa, that's going to offend Brian, the Iowa fan here.
Garza's been eating too many Twinkies all season. He's slow. He can barely move. He's like watching Haystack Calhoun play center.
I don't know who that is, but okay.
But Dosunmu is the deal, and
Luka Garza is literally taking a third of Iowa's shots when he's on the court, and he's hitting 60% from 2 and 43% from 3.
He's been terrible the last month.
Oh my God!
All right, we got to get to a break. We'll pick this up on the other side.
Greg will not join us on the other side.
as the Wolverines, they take on Rutgers tonight. Big matchup with Ohio State coming up on Sunday, and of course, you also got the hockey team that came off of pause, playing the best offense in the country, and obviously weren't able to get the sweep, but came off stronger than maybe some expected. So we'll get into that as well here on the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 WTK, The Ticket.
I got a million excuses.
Did you guys check the Nebraska box score, by the way? They have a guy named Elijah Wood. They're literally playing a Hobbit.
Well, I don't understand why Nebraska. I mean, I know he hasn't shot well this year, but I still think that the guy from Iceland,
Thor,
he's not getting enough minutes. And when he really had a nice second half against Illinois when they finally did bring him in, and I'm not quite sure why they've completely buried him on their bench.
He plays 20 minutes a game and doesn't really do a whole lot. Like he's
been playing 10 minutes a game lately.
Yeah,
okay, he's just a shooter.
Yeah,
and you need someone to be able to create something on that offense.
Yeah. Maybe I just caught him on this. I mean, it's not like I'm following Nebraska basketball that closely, but I did see that game, and he had a good second half.
He's 8 for 34 from 3 this year. He's taking a lot more twos than he normally does. Last year he was hitting 37% from 3. This year he's hitting 23%. So he's just a shooter who's hitting can't even hit fourth of his threes. So
that's the answer then.
Yeah.
Garza in the Michigan State game, 3 of 11 from the floor, 2 of 7 from the free throw line. Didn't do anything on the offensive boards.
Okay, but the State got lucky.
No, I think State was focusing on him, which is why, in fact.
Right, there's a reason that Iowa shot like 50% from 3, right?
Right, I think that's right. Although they shot 50% from 3 their prior game, too, against whoever they played.
Well, Luka Garza was on the court then, too.
Yeah.
Really, Iowa, the best way to beat Iowa is just get Luka Garza in foul trouble.
I think Nunji's better. I think Nunji is going to be a better player.
I think Nunji is good. I wouldn't say that. like Nunji can play. Like gets his 3-point shooting up a little bit, and he'll be a problem.
Yeah, and
I wish like Michigan had like a guy like that, like 7-footer, not an NBA threat. You can just leave him on your roster for 4 years. Like a guy like
Back on the radio in 90 seconds, guys.
A guy like
Colin
Hunter
Castleton?
Dickinson, maybe?
No, I mean like as a backup. Like so the
Oh,
backup situation
yeah.
at center is, I mean Davis actually did a great job against Wisconsin, but he's got limitations.
Yeah, he's not a good defender. I mean, he's on offense, he has some I mean, he's a good low post center, and he's not great in the pick and roll game, but he is a low post center, and he plays hard as hell. The problem is he's just limited defensively. And that's the
I mean, he's an innings eater. He's a Mike Maroth, a guy who just gets old Tigers poll. Yeah, a guy who just you put him in when you're up 10, and then when he comes out a few minutes later, you're still up 10.
I don't know about that one. I mean, it is nice that he's a backup center who can generate his own offense. You don't often see that. Like, he's able to go on the post and create shots, which is unusual.
Yeah, Garza's last 3 games have absolutely stunk.
Back in about 20, guys.
Are we still on this?
Garza thing hard.
Yeah.
Can we rip on Garza after Michigan plays them? Because that's
Yeah, I hear you.
You guys are superstitious, man.
Stand by for radio, guys. Stand by. Coming back on radio in 5, 4, 3.
I think Tom Izzo's coaching this year, down the stretch, it might wind up being the best coaching job of his
I got
life.
a million excuses.
Tom, I see what you're dealing with. And let's say you win a game. If they win a game down the stretch.
So sick of coaching the way I got to coach and practice the way I got to practice. That's what
all the
sucks
weird
about
guys,
basketball.
man, I see what he has to deal with. I understand what kind of effort it takes to lose and not get blown out with that team. So I'm giving him a ton of credit. Let's focus on Michigan, though, guys, as I'm sure Sparties want us to do. Rutgers, a team that has come down to earth since that early part of the season when you had Ron Harper Jr. averaging over 20 points a game, and they're ranked, and then they have 5 straight losses. Now they've bounced back. I think it's 5 of the last 6. Is that right, Ira? But not the same caliber of teams that they were playing when they had that losing streak. So what do you see with this Rutgers team that the Wolverines are going to face tonight? Am I being overconfident when I say I'm not really worried about this game?
I wouldn't say that you're being overconfident. Like, this is, Rutgers under Steve Peichel has a certain brand, and they're bricklayers who play their ass off, right? And this year's Michigan team is a bunch of guys who can really shoot, who also play their ass off. So if you're able to get some easy transition opportunities, and Rutgers' offense can stay above the water level. But against this Michigan team, if they don't turn the ball over 20 times, this is going to be a win.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. The Rutgers is a good team. I mean, they're I think they're number 26 in KenPom. They've got good wins over Illinois, Purdue, Indiana, Michigan State, Minnesota. They've got good wins, and they're the number 12 defensive team in the country on the KenPom numbers. And so this is a team that can really play defense. What they can't do is shoot the ball particularly well most of the time. Right. I mean, they're not a good 3-point shooting team. They're maybe about the worst free throw shooting team in the country, and one of the reasons for that is their center, Miles Johnson. Yeah, who's a nice player. He's sort of a poor man's Kofi Coburn, but he just cannot shoot the ball from the free throw line, which gives you some advantage. And late, I think he's under 38%, I think, on the season from the line. But they're a nice team. I think Peichel has coached them well. The key for Michigan is can Mike Smith and Eli not turn the ball over? If they can get Michigan into an offense and not turn the ball over, then Michigan should win. If you give them runouts, then it's a problem. And that's what Rutgers has feasted on this year. They have a very high steal percentage. They get a lot of steals and runouts. And if Michigan can avoid that, and then the odds are very good that they should win this thing. But it's a mistake to underrate Rutgers because they're a good basketball team.
I think they're another one of those teams where, like, if their center's in foul trouble, they're just dead. You saw 2 games against Ohio State when Miles Johnson went out, and it's not because Miles Johnson's bad. It's just because without him, they don't have a good backup. They can they move Ron Harper over to center, and that kind of takes away his effectiveness.
But Cliff Omoruyi missed those games.
Ask you about him. What's up with Cliff Omoruyi? He was a big time recruit for them.
He was injured, so he missed those games. He missed big chunks of the season, and so in those Ohio State games, you got Mamadou Ducour coming on the court, and he's just not ready for anything. Although he is an excellent cook, it appears. They did a segment on it, and I was like, man, that looks banging, Mamadou. But yeah, so there is a big drop off when Omoruyi isn't available. He is a solid defensive center. But their offense actually drops off a lot when Miles isn't on the court. So despite the free throw issues, I think his offensive rebounding is just the biggest factor. So if Michigan can, contain him on the boards and force Geo Baker and Ron Harper to shoot away from the rim, they're going to struggle to get to 1 point per possession.
Yeah, Ron Harper is in his last 5 games is 0-19 from 3. I know he started the season hot, and everyone was saying, "Oh, this guy's going to be the best player in the Big Ten," and he looked like it, but he's completely cooled off. He's only made one. I think he's 1 of 24 his last 6, 0-19 the last 5.
Jeez.
So he's just not shooting the 3 at all right now, at least. And they do have a guy, Mulcahy. What I like about him is he's from Bayonne, New Jersey.
Mulcahy.
Yeah, isn't that his name? Paul
Mulcahy. Oh, yeah.
Why would you bring him up? The only reason to bring him up is his headband. That's it.
No, he's from Bayonne, New Jersey, home of Mike and Doc Gallagher, the dirtiest ever pro wrestlers.
Okay.
And so that's the only reason I think of to bring him up.
So Jacob Young is their other guy right now.
He's a nice player.
Yeah, he's sort of taken it used to be you thought Geo Baker was the other guy offensively, and Jacob Young is, and Ira and I went over it yesterday. As far as their improvement, their slight improvement is a 3-point shooting team, and I stress slight improvement. I think it's like a percentage point over last year. That's all Jacob Young. He's shooting the ball a lot better and a lot more this year. Yeah,
he's shooting 39% from 3. And he's a nice player. His one thing is, if you pressure him, he'll turn it over. He really isn't solid with the ball. But he has he's very high usage. He has a high assist rate. He just is. You can pressure him, and he will turn the ball over.
Remember,
he's a nice player.
Ayo's freshman year, when he was just this open court terror, but in the half court, he couldn't really find a lot. Yeah. That's kind of Jacob Young. He's one of the fastest players in the Big Ten. He's probably going to pick off a perimeter pass and get a layup.
He has a high steal rate. Yeah, you're right.
3 times against Michigan in 2 games last year.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get him in the half court, you put him up against Eli Brooks, and he's going to struggle because he's a guy who isn't a great shooter off the dribble. He's improved his percentage from 3 this year, but that's only 54 attempts. And if you look at his career numbers, I think that he's kind of shooting above his head right now, likely to regress. So yeah, it's all about having Michigan's defense be structured.
And I think we all agree, as long as they don't overlook this team, they'll win this game. What about Sunday against the Buckeyes? I mean, we've talked about them before, I know. And what is it about this team? They don't look like they should be the number 4 team in the country, 17-4. And yeah, here they are. But now the matchup is upon us. Break down the matchup.
Well, I mean, they're like the 4th best offense in the country, and you look at their personnel, and you're like, how? Because Dwayne Washington is a good at bad shots guy who's able to bail them out of a number of possessions, but he's shooting 38% from 2. Like Liddell and Zed Key, like their centers are all undersized, but get work done. He is one of the more interesting guys in the conference to me. because he's a freshman. He doesn't look like a whole lot, but he's shooting 65% from the floor, and he's got a ridiculous offensive rebound rate, and just it just fails to be understandable to me how good this team is.
Well, this is the great part about basketball, right? Is that sometimes teams can be a lot more if you're play together and you have synergy and good coaching. And I think Holtman is a premier coach. I think they got a premier coach and they play together and they're not selfish and they're good athletes so that works. And Liddell, as I said last week, reminds me a lot of Phil Hubbard. And Phil Hubbard is, his jersey ain't up on the Chrysler ceiling for no reason. And he is very similar sort of player, very fine basketball player. Yeah, he's undersized. I don't know how he checks Hunter Dickinson, but my guess is Holtman will do something to make it difficult on us. And that's a hard game against a very, 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 very good team. And I didn't think Washington would evolve the way he has. I mean, I think it's
always personal for him when he plays Michigan.
Yeah.
And you can tell that. I think he's maybe even said it before, being a Michigan kid, and Michigan looked at him some, but I think there's a little bit of an edge, kind of like Trevion Williams when he sees Michigan or Michigan State on the other side, brings a little extra to the table. So
he can't be mad that John Beilein didn't offer him. Come on, read the room, man.
I hear you, but different people find their edges in different places. He still finds one when he sees a Michigan team on the other side. But yeah, you mentioned Hunter Dickinson should eat him up, and I guess I feel like they should have been eaten up by the other centers that they faced. And
those centers do fine when they're on the court. One thing Ohio State does better than almost anyone in the country is draw fouls, especially in the paint. And so they put Garza on the bench. We talked about, they put Williams on the bench. Like they've gone up against some of these big time centers in the Big Ten, and those guys have been having to sit on the bench because they get 2 quick fouls, and then you can't use those guys. That's what happened against Iowa. Garza was out.
Well, Garza played
30.
Garza played 36 minutes in the most recent matchup.
Yeah.
So you're thinking of a different game.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
well, go ahead. I'm just going to say it's certainly true that they're very good at getting to the free throw line, and they shoot well from the line.
Yeah, once they get there, they are on point. So, and a couple of guys that I think are the best role players in the conference are Justin Ahrens, who's taken a total of 3 twos this year.
Yeah, he's a tremendous shooter.
Shooting 47% from 3, and they get him the ball enough so that he's shooting like almost a average number of shots when he's on the court, and he doesn't do a whole lot else. And then Kyle Young he's just like a rim runner, right? Like he doesn't create a whole lot of his own offense, but he's so efficient because he never turns the ball over. And then he gets to the line and he's at 83% at the line. So he's a problem. And Michigan has not really gone up against a team that is going to play a guy at the 4 like Kyle Young. So it's a matchup where you're like, okay, who are we putting on this guy? And it's like, is Franz Wagner going to be physical enough? And it's going to be long enough. There's no question about that. But if he gets put under the basket and Kyle Young's able to draw fouls from him, then he's going to have an efficient game. And that is one of the reasons that they're in the spot that they are, is that they have these 2 role players who are insanely efficient.
Yeah, you mentioned Ahrens, and I was looking at his shooting percentage the other day, and I don't know where it ranks in the country, but I could. What is Corey Kispert? Is that the only guy in the country that's shooting better than him? I mean, it's just trying to put into some perspective how well Ahrens is shooting the basketball right now. He is, I think was it the Iowa game late where they had held them in check, and then he erupted for some late threes. One of those recent games he did it, but he's between him and, as you guys pointed out, if they go to the free throw line and miss, if CJ Walker goes to the free throw line and misses, it's like, what happened?
Yeah.
Someone has adjusted the rim. They are that good when it comes to the charity stripe. So, efficient from three, efficient from the free throw line, or getting to the free throw line and making shots. Seems to me that those are the ingredients to something that is otherwise inexplicable.
Yeah, and I think there's an element of luck in it as well. So if you look at their defense, they're the #1 team in Big Ten play at preventing three-pointers from going in. And, sometimes that can be a real effect. I kind of feel like that is mostly luck here because this is a team that does double the post because they have to. And they're giving up a fair number of threes. So they're 9th in the league in actually allowing teams to shoot from three. So I feel like sometimes you can look at 3-point percentage and be like, okay, that's a real thing. It feels like this isn't. And they've been a little bit fortunate to dodge some bullets there.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Incidentally, Kyle Young was a big recruit for Michigan. I believe Beeline loved Kyle Young and recruited him very heavily and lost him. So, and Aarons is the brother, I assume, of the Aarons from Michigan State. Yeah,
Yes, he is.
and I think he's probably a more valuable piece, at least at Ohio State. Not that the other Aarons was a weak basketball player by any stretch.
I just tweeted a picture of the chart. Unfortunately, you can't really describe it that well on radio, but like I make those graphics, and his is just one of the most incredible graphics I've ever seen because it's just one bar for threes that travels across the whole piece of paper.
His numbers are insane. Again, I'll look up the stats, but there could only be one or two guys in the country shooting. Only guy I know in the country has a better is Kispert. Now, if there ain't anyone else, I'd be surprised.
I looked this up. He's 36, which is really good. But
36?
Yeah. I mean, there's two Iowa guys shooting almost 50%. So
yeah, Frederick and Wieskamp are both 49%, and he's 47%.
He's likely to be in the top 10 in high majors, but there's a lot of teams playing low major ball who fill up these lists.
Right, and we're playing against zones where you don't see that nearly so much in the Big Ten.
Real quick. Michigan hockey coming off the pause. They come out, blitz Wisconsin in the second period, get that win the first night. Second night just came up short there at the end. What did you see, Brian?
Well, I mean, Wisconsin is a very good team, and I think the Big Ten has 3 excellent teams this year, and Michigan's one of them. And then Michigan's goal distribution just hasn't been very good. So they're like plus 28 in goal differential, and Wisconsin's plus 33, and Minnesota's like plus 40 or something, and then everybody else is negative. So the Michigan played one of the best teams in the country, got a split out of it. I feel like I'm relatively content with the way they played. The difference, I think, in the Saturday game was the fact that Cole Caulfield absolutely went off after being very quiet in the first game. So that's going to happen because that guy's going to be an NHL player probably next year. And Michigan, I don't know how they're going to do the tournament because pairwise doesn't make any sense this year because there are no non-conference games. And so you're looking at a team that's, 11-7. So they need some wins, and they're going to need to take advantage of the games that they have against teams that aren't Wisconsin and Minnesota and really run off, 5 of 6 here to really feel good going into the Big Ten tournament because it's just going to be a smoke-filled room this year. And hopefully they will not be in a position where they're on the bubble.
Yeah, the question
before, though.
Yeah, the question is, though, will we even play Penn State? Because the rumors, I was at both games this weekend, and the rumor is that Penn State has got a COVID problem and they're not playing anymore this year. So I don't, but just a rumor, but it's out there, and so I don't know how that works for Michigan. There's also some noise that Michigan's not enthusiastic because don't they have another series against Arizona State?
They do.
And there's some noise that might not happen either, and that Michigan is looking around, that for somebody else. I don't know. This is just stuff I heard at the arena on Sunday, and I just don't know if any of that's accurate or not. But
Well,
It's
if they continue to play the way they've been playing after the break, the only team that can expect to go toe to toe with them that's left on the schedule is Minnesota. Because
That's
Minnesota's the
correct.
best team in the country.
Yeah.
And so
Although Minnesota just lost twice to
I know.
to Wisconsin.
They're a very good team. We'll just leave
Yeah,
it
I
at that.
know.
So they need to get these games in and play the way they've been playing, then everything should work out the way it should, and they'll be in the tourney. And if you look at Wisconsin and Minnesota, their top scorers are sophomores and juniors and seniors who happen to have the same talent level as Michigan. And Michigan's top 6 scorers are all freshmen. So it makes sense that they're a step behind these two teams right now. And then hopefully next year they get enough of their freshmen back to like really put the pedal to the metal.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely with that. I mean, Michigan really is young, and their scorers are very young, and that's the deal. I mean, the fact that Michigan had 5 players gone for the juniors in the Minnesota series really, I think, hurt them.
Yes, I mean Minnesota had 3 guys gone too, so.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, but they had 3 defensemen and they replaced them with 3 more NHL draftees. So like Minnesota's deeper than Michigan. I think they're a year beyond where Michigan is. Like they're in their sophomore year. Wisconsin's kind of in the same boat, except for I hate their goaltending. Like I thought that was actually one of the some of the softer goals that Michigan's been able to score was in the first game.
Well, so here's the question as we close out here: does Michigan sweep Ohio State in this weekend of Ohio State battles? You got the Michigan women's basketball team in the rematch with Ohio State after Nas gave them 50 last time. This time she has Leah Brown. Got Michigan men's basketball taking on Ohio State. Then you have hockey, another set with the Buckeyes after sweeping them earlier in the season. Does Michigan win all 4 games? Brian Cook.
Sure, what the hell? Why not? Naz Hillman goes for 42 in the basketball game and scores a goal.
You taking that action there, Seth?
Yeah, I think Michigan's pretty much had Ohio State's number ever since we should have beaten them in the game that they ran away from in football this year. So Michigan over Ohio State in everything.
I'm going 2-2. I don't think the women's team will win this weekend. And so 2-2.
You don't think the women's team will win with Leah Brown back?
Yeah, Leah Brown back. Come on.
Mute Craig. Craig.
I mean, you can do that. You can literally do that, Ira.
How is Ohio State going to stop Naz? I mean, last time she went off for 50 points. 50 points on these people. And if like anybody scored on the rest of the team, like Michigan would have won.
Yeah, it was like a 4-point victory. Yeah. All right. That'll do it for today's show. Another fun one with the MGoBlog Roundtable, folks. We'll be back tomorrow here on the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 WTK, The Ticket, the official voice of University of Michigan Sports Ann Arbor, a Cumulus station.
Forgot to talk bacon.
Oh.